Okay. All right, well, here we are. It is 6:36. We've got our 3 planning commissioners on the line. I'm going to go ahead and share the agenda. Says it's paused. Are you guys able to see my screen?
It's loading.
Yes,
What?
you started. That's all. Maybe it's bandwidth.
I'm going to stop and retry. It says paused for some reason. And
Recalculating.
wrong button. Here we go. Let's try it.
Recalculating.
Still says paused.
You want me
Wait
just
a
to share my
moment.
screen?
Do you want to see if you can share?
Oh, you have to stop yours, but. Monitor 3, please. There we go. See it?
Yep.
I see it.
All right.
All right, well, here we are, December 27th, our final planning commission meeting of the year. We'll go ahead and call to order. It is 6:38. Eric, since you are sharing the agenda, would you like me to do the note taking?
Sure. I can chime in and help too, but yes, if you want to take the lead, that'd be lovely. Why is my camera not on?
You know what? I have a copy of it, so I'm going to take my notes in the copy so that it's not screwing up your screen.
You're fine. You don't have to worry about it.
Well, then we keep an agenda and minutes anyways. Okay, call to order at 6:38. We did. Should we do a roll call? I am here, Kirsten Compatello.
Val Chef, present. Oh,
Vince Padilla here.
Okay, and we have no citizens on the line. So brings us on to our next item. And since we didn't have quorum last month, I just kept pretty much the same agenda. So the joint multi-municipal zoning project update, there's not a whole lot to state there that wasn't shared, hasn't been shared previously, but that diagnostic report and the executive summary, which I think this planning commission discussed at our October meeting when it was draft. So we saw it. We discussed it when it was draft. We had shared our comments. The consultant made their edits, fixed the typos, etc., and then got it sent out. And the blurb that we had discussed at our October meeting about putting it up on Savvy Citizen. The Savvy Citizen was sent out. Savvy Citizen notice was sent out with that little blurb that we had discussed at our October meeting. And the diagnostic report and the executive summary are both up on the website now. I did get an update from the consultant shortly before Christmas. They sent a draft version of the zoning map, but it came out like just the week before Christmas. So I haven't had a chance to follow up on that yet, but that draft should be going. I'll need to see what, they didn't give a lot of information on what their next steps are. So I'll see what their next steps are, if it needs to be updated further, or if I will just go ahead and share that with the planning commission. They haven't shared it with the steering committee yet, but I would assume we'll, see whether they need any more changes to it, or if it just will go out to the steering committee in January. I would expect that'll be the next topic for the next steering committee meeting, but that hasn't been scheduled yet. So that's something I need to follow up with the consultant on to figure out when that can get shared more widely. Put this, bit more description on what the status of that draft map is and when they're going to have the next steering committee meeting.
cool.
But
When do they expect to be all done?
they're supposed to be done in summer. It was supposed to be roughly 1 year project.
What does that mean? What does done mean?
So it's partly in their hands and partly in our hands. What that means is they had structured their proposal in 3 phases. So they did their diagnostic phase, that's finished. they're currently in their second phase, and I don't remember what they called it, but it's essentially drafting the
Right.
update.
Right.
And then it'll go through a review period and refinement period. That'll be the third phase. They'll be rewriting the zoning ordinance. They'll deliver an updated code to Crafton and an updated code to Ingram. Then it'll need to go through a review period. It has to be publicly advertised.
Mhm.
Citizens will be able to, or residents will be able to comment on it.
Do
That
they
part is a little-
anticipate, before you go on to the next one, do they anticipate a lot of public comment?
That, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's kind of
I'm-
always hard to tell.
I'm just curious what it, what's normal, you know what I mean? Whether it's Millvale or Etna or, Brentwood or, some other town. What should we anticipate public comment to look like? I was just curious.
I really have no idea because every community is so different and the extent of changes are so different.
Yeah.
Community by community. I don't think ours is changing a lot, so I wouldn't
Right.
anticipate major comments, but they do owe us another round of public engagement.
Mhm.
And so that's another thing I want to push them on in January when we get back together.
That's why I was asking, right? Because,
Yeah, the more
know-
public engagement they do earlier,
right.
that'll
If,
reduce comments later.
if the norm, you know what I mean, there has to be an average. If the norm is 27 comments, you know what I mean, we should look to exceed the norm, right? So what can this body do to help promote, you know what I mean, promote the public awareness to exceed the norm, whatever that norm is. I was just wondering if what's
I
norm?
don't think that's really the right way to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, what you want people to do is be well informed about it.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want lots of comments that are not going to be useful.
Mhm.
Let me try to explain what that means. Like if we have a lot of residents who aren't following this process at all, and then they find out about it during that final review period and have a lot of questions or comments that are things that the consultant can't actually address, then it just stretches out the approval process and
Right.
may exceed our budget, which we will do if that's what we have to do. If there are a lot of comments that are received, we'll want to make sure that all of those comments are considered and responded to in an appropriate fashion. But I have seen in other cases where in work that I've done where there can be hundreds of comments that are not things that actually pertain to the project.
Interesting.
So it's not really about how many comments do you get. It's more about making sure that residents understand what is being updated and have a chance to give any, specific comments or refinements if they have any on those types of changes. So that understanding is much more important than quantity of comments.
That's really great insight, Kirsten. I'm saying this through the lens of maybe we can be the when that time comes, maybe something that we can do rather than comment is to have like a, some sort of listening session, town hall, whatever, that we can do from planning commission to gather it so it doesn't slow down the process, but allows people to have a voice and understand like, oh, then yeah, you should add that as a comment, or oh, here we can help clarify that. I don't know, maybe there's something that can be done through the engagement process, but there's a lot of time between then and now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And that's one of the things I think is worth this group discussing, not just what we might like to do. I think a listening session could be a good idea, but also what we might like to suggest that the consultant do. They owe us more public engagement and they're supposed to come up with some ideas for that, but we can give them our ideas too.
Right.
You guys have thoughts on how you'd like to recommend that they do their next phase of public engagement?
When do you think they'll start the review process, like finish this drafting? April?
I would expect more like February. They didn't give a set date, but that's something that, I'd like to press them on in January to start getting some dates set for their next deliverables. if we just think of it in, thirds essentially, then I would
Okay.
expect maybe February, they should have a draft, or March latest.
All right, well, let's table it for now. Maybe we can put an action item for us to, I mean, obviously, we'll talk about it each meeting, but as it, as the draft comes into the review focus, maybe we can start talking about how do we engage the community better than just, blind comments of, what is this? How does this affect me? To a session where they can, learn more about what is this and how it can affect them with a consultant.
I would like for their next engagement round to have an element of education involved,
For sure.
particularly highlighting the things that have changed, the major changes, and giving some description
Wow.
as to why. Talking about how, what the impact will be to residents or business or building owners, and what the benefits are, or what the reasoning is for some of those bigger changes.
Awesome. Totally agree.
Eric, what were you thinking in terms of having a listening session? Would you think that would be like during a regular planning commission meeting, or as a separate event?
All of our time is, slice and dice, you know what I mean? We're all stretched in our lives. If we can, I'm happy to give up a planning commission session to have it, as that, or, do like we've done in the past and, make it a standalone thing, advertise it, blah, 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 do that dance, invite counsel, you know what I mean? Maybe, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm happy to do whatever. I'm tired of the community saying, what are they doing? And this is not council current or council past. This is everywhere, right? What are they doing now? Right? I just want to help eliminate, or at least define they, and what they are doing. So whatever needs to happen, I'll my hat's in the ring, just to help the community understand, what is this? Why is this important to me? I think we've done a good job in the past of, engaging and educating some of this stuff, but you and Lydia are kind of SMEs, subject matter experts on some of this stuff. I can't say that I really can answer community questions. So, and maybe it's beyond that. Maybe it's really something where, we promote it and we support it, but it's really the consultant's gig, you know what I mean, for their session, but whatever it needs to be. But, thinking about the timing of it, could be a great thing to do. Again, I don't think we had a ton of people come to the band shell in the dead of winter last year for the park stuff, but what a great thing in the spring, have it outdoors, have a thing, something that engage the community in a way that's not at the stuffiness of the community center. I don't know, but like I said, we have plenty of time.
I wonder if we could get the Parks and Rec Committee to collaborate with us on something so that we could pair it up with more activation than just, talking about the zoning status, which
It's a great idea.
definitely want people to be interested in that, but let's face it, it's not that interesting for a lot of people.
Yeah, well,
And if they'd like to learn about it, but they're weighing, what else their plans might be on a weekend, maybe we can make it more inviting by trying to get Parks and Rec to participate.
it's great. It's a great idea.
Well, I can reach out to Parks and Rec and kind of float that idea. And once we go back in January, I'm not going to press the consultant on anything this week. I assume they're not really going to respond, but come January, I'm going to get back with them and try to get some dates nailed down, set up the next steering committee meeting, and get them to start putting their, start thinking about setting dates for what their next engagement process will be.
Makes perfect sense.
So we can start, promoting that and planning for it and trying to participate in it if possible, or figure out something else that we might do on our end that can go along with it and provide another option for people.
Love it.
I do want to, I'm hoping that they'll do their public engagement first, because we've, I think, done as much as we can in terms of talking about the general value of the zoning project. But when it comes to talking about the changes that they're making, I think, they need to give us more information on that. But if they do their part, if they do some kind of public engagement activity and they put together some educational materials and some things that we can then take and further promote at a follow-up session, that'll be, I see that maybe being the better.
Yeah.
The better scheduling. And then in terms of overall schedule, once they finish their draft and they go through a round of refinement, they do have to do a formal 60-day review process, has to be advertised. Comments at that point would hopefully be very minimal, because it's an advertised review process.
Right.
But the intent is, after that, it can go to council for a vote. And there are usually comments after a process like that, so it would have to go back to the consultant. But if they make any major other changes, it might have to go through another advertised review period. So if we can do as many of the community reviews and more public awareness and steering committee reviews and planning commission reviews and council reviews in advance, that'll keep us more on schedule and make help make sure that we only have to do an advertised review period one time, because that impacts our schedule and impacts our budget.
Time and money.
But you can't fully control those things. You don't know what comments you'll get, and we'll want to make sure that we do consider all the comments that we get. So that's something that is a little bit out of the consultant's hand, but they're due to get us at least to that point by summer. And then after that, it goes to council to adopt, and that is in our hands. So always with a project like this, the hope would be that it passes fairly quickly, but there's always the potential that it could be held up by council. There could be different opinions or thoughts or questions or continued changes that are wanted. And so sometimes things like this can take a while to actually pass. So that's the final step, is for council to pass it, formally adopt it. And that schedule is something that's in our hands.
Is there a plan to have like a formal presentation to council in one of the meetings?
They kind of gave us a loose menu of different things they could do for their public engagement, and a presentation to council is one of them. So that is something that we talked about, and that is something that we said in the kickoff we would probably want, but we haven't finalized what their series of presentations will be. They had promised I think 3 public engagement sessions. So one has been done, a second one will be done, and then a third one could be that presentation to council.
Okay. I would highly recommend that. My concern is if council isn't if it's not directly in a council meeting, some council members may ignore it until the last minute and then have questions or reservations, which could affect our timeline and then have us to kind of backpedal a little bit. So I think it'd be a really great idea if we can have that presentation to council.
I think we'd actually talked about that kind of way back at the kickoff, and having a presentation to council, not at the very end, but before the formal review process goes in. So a presentation of the draft rewrite.
Perfect.
When they still have a lot of time to give major comments, and they still have a lot of time to kind of take it in and be able to, if there are major comments or anything that takes some time to address. having that presentation be at the end of the second phase when there's a draft.
That sounds good to me.
What do you guys think of that? Because I
I
mean,
think that
really,
makes all the
no
sense.
right way.
Sorry. Yep.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, because if council's not engaged in this, then that's a problem, right? So for sure. And before it goes out for public comment, council needs to be educated, right?
Mhm.
I don't know how many pages one of these things is. I'm sure it's obtuse, I'm sure it's quite lengthy. So to
Mhm.
have somebody come and give the clip notes to the folks at the council meeting, say, hey, this is the gist of it. And I think your focus is spot on, Kirsten. It's like, here's the stuff that's changed. You know what I mean? Here, everything else is the same because this is a zoning code thing that's kind of, a lot of this is just ticking and tying stuff that broke in the stuff that we adopted a decade ago. But here are some areas of new interest, right? To help them understand. And I think that sets the tone for what we could do with the, costs. I don't know, with the consultant, something we do on our own, or, whatever. Maybe we do that listening and fact finding. And so, people can obviously go and comment, but, if they come to this, we can have some spirited conversation to help make those comments more informed and meaningful. Not that people aren't informed, but to help them inform, what this means. Because, you see these things all the time on, social media and all sorts of, different places where, people ask questions that are really, they don't understand the structure of what is happening. And their question is really about what is it, as opposed to the comment of, why is this changing? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think that's a good flag. It's a good action item for us as the actual steering committee works with the consultant to finalize a deliverable schedule coming up in February-ish, as that comes into, into focus. Maybe in our January meeting, we can revisit. And if we need to, actually plan it in February, but maybe we can, maybe we'll know enough by the end of January, we can say, okay, let's do this little town hall listening informal thing. And we can decide whether or not the consultant's involved, which would be great. But if we need to contain costs, maybe there's something that we can do, and you guys can just give me stuff to read so that I'm not a complete muttering buffoon. But, I'm good at mumbling buffoonery. Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the first questions is to figure out, to follow up with them and get them to give us a date, an updated
Yep.
date for when they expect to give us that draft. Because I'm just throwing out February, that makes sense to me. They had a schedule very early on, but it was a fairly loose schedule.
Well,
3
sure.
tiers.
Yeah. I mean, the straw man
Mhm.
business terminology.
Okay, so I'll reach out to them early January, try to get that next steering committee meeting scheduled, and then also talk about this, get them to start putting some dates and some details to what they plan to do for their next public engagement session, and also talk about when they can get a presentation to council, what month is going to best suit when that draft plan is ready to review. I would think the presentation to council should be after a public engagement event. Get the community involved. Council can be at that too, and then do a more detailed deep dive with council afterwards.
I could see somebody having an opinion either way. I don't have one. I mean,
Vince, do you have any thoughts?
I can go either way. Doesn't matter.
All right, so maybe that's something to ask them about too, which way they think would be more effective.
the only reason why I say either way is, I mean, you don't want to blindside council if they're unaware as to what it is. And they find out from the, a pitchfork laden community, like, why are you changing this? I didn't know we were changing, you know what I mean? But,
Well,
I would
mean,
say that it's
ideally,
kind of
yeah.
incumbent on council to, like, pull into lean in over your skis then, right? Maybe you should know a little bit more about this, and so they should be there, right?
Eric, I'm going to make you host, by the way.
Okay.
Because my computer is doing something that indicates it might be shutting off and reinstalling something. And
Cool.
it's not giving me an option to close that. I can't tell if it's gonna, either it'll just do something in the background or it will make me close all my apps.
Yeah, I can.
If I get bumped off, you are host and I will come back as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Okay. We also had talked about doing a planning commission session and having the consultant attend a planning commission session. That was not technically one of the items that they promised us, but they did agree to it verbally. So we've been kind of holding on when we want to do that until there's a little bit more meat to dive into.
Right.
But I haven't forgotten about that. So I think that's another thing I want to ask them about. I'm kind of assuming from what we've talked about before as a planning commission that the best time to do that is also once that draft plan is out.
Right.
And we can really go through line by line in advance and then have like a detailed Q&A with them and discuss concerns or issues or recommendations with them, with the planning commission and the consultant together. But the other way to do that might be to have it sooner once the draft zoning map, the updated zoning map is circulated. So that's also a question for both of you, and it can be put out to the other two who aren't here tonight as well. Do you have thoughts on when, what content you would want to be reviewing when we schedule that planning commission consultant session?
And I know that you just really hate when I answer a question with a question, but so when they come out with the zoning map, I mean, the way this usually goes is the rest of it just kind of bureaucratic filling in the, the line items that need to happen. Is the map kind of I feel like, based off of the way this has all gone, that map is really the most kind of contentious part. Is that am I wrong?
It really depends. So
No. Vince, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh my God, what a cliffhanger. That's awesome. Oh, hold on a second. I want to screenshot this. Oh my God, that is awesome.
all right, it did kick me off.
Oh, darn it.
I am
I
back.
thought we were gonna lose you. Oh man. I'm sorry, I was being silly.
Well, I'm sure you guys answered all the questions in the seconds I was off, right?
Oh, did you see what I did? Because you froze. You said it really depends, Eric. And you froze in that like contemplative thought. It was pretty awesome. Anyway.
Well, that was a good place to freeze, I guess.
Yes, for sure. All right. No, we're good. I think what we do is we put it on the agenda for January. We see what's out and we make a call, right? And so if you had to guess, and I know it's a guess, will the map be out in January?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be final. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah.
And they shared an updated view of it. They shared something with me just before Christmas. So I haven't done anything with it yet, but I would expect that the next steps will be, I'll see if they have any immediate questions before they release that further to the steering committee. As long as they don't have any major questions where they're like, we just wanted to check on this and this before we fill that in. I can get them those answers if so, and then they'll send it out to the steering committee. I would say at the same time that it goes to the steering committee, it'll also go to council as an update on the project, and it can go to the planning commission as an update on the project. So it'll still be draft, but it'll be basically ready for our review and our input.
So I think a
The
really,
zoning map is not changing enormously, so there are some changes that I think we'll want to dive into, but the meat in this case, since each community is different, the things that are being updated in zoning are different per community. In our case, I think it's more the text of the ordinance itself. It's the details of what you're allowed to do in different zoning districts,
right.
not the map itself.
I think that what I'm guessing is with that map though, here's what I'll say. This is my comment. My comment is upon receipt of that map, each of us on this commission should familiarize ourselves with the map, understand a little bit about what has changed, but also, I'll be honest with you, familiarize ourselves with the map in total, right? And be a little bit, wise to, what is all happening before we head to the January Planning Commission meeting. Because I think with that kind of, self-discovery under our belts, we can have an intelligent conversation about, hey, my neighbor would like to know about, I'd like to know about, my street, my niche of the woods would like to know about this. And I think that other people would too. And we can talk about it and have a meaningful, discussion about, hey, maybe we can have a session prior to the release. That's the planning commission session and blah, blah, I'm feeling, I think that that's probably going to be what it is. But I think the salient point is for the people on this commission, for all of us, myself included, to have a really good understanding when that stuff comes out, to really just familiarize ourselves with it so we can have an adult conversation and a productive January decision.
So you're talking about sharing, I can certainly share the draft zoning map as soon as they release it.
Right.
And I would expect that, beginning of January. I just need to check with them what their status is and whether it's ready to go or whether they have any final questions. So that can be shared early January. So you're saying, Eric, we'll talk about that as a planning commission at our January meeting, not include the consultant at that time. We'll talk about it internally and then decide whether we want the consultant at like the next meeting or after. Okay.
I think it's incumbent upon each of us to be educated about the totality of where we are, because at that point, I feel like it's probably pretty much done. There's lots of stuff that needs to be backfilled in terms of proper language and that sort of thing. But it seems like the big ideas, those essential questions that the updated zoning project goes to answer, are kind of in focus, not done, but in focus. And for us to understand what those things are and contextualize them into, what we need to understand or what we feel the community would be best served in helping us, having us help them understand. Right.
So I think that means I also need to ask the consultant or press them to share not just the draft zoning map, but a draft of the writing that they have done so far. Or a summary of the major changes.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
just looking at the zoning map, I can't tell what they're changing either.
Right. That's where I was
You're
going.
all going to need the text in order to understand what any changes mean on the map.
Totally. I think that, getting them to draft a summary of changes as kind of an impact statement for us is going to translate into a summary of changes. If we're getting a pre-draft semi-final, council would eventually be the consumer of a final version of the draft of changes. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I do think I need to push them a bit more because they've been they've definitely been working on it, but they've been a little quiet lately. And I think we need to start pushing them more to make sure that they're giving us what we want and giving us good, regular updates. They haven't been giving very detailed updates.
Well, and you've been about this since the beginning, about the idea of the transparency and the idea of the community needing the input, if we can't provide that context, I mean, I'm sure they're doing fine work inside their submarine, but our role is to kind of be the periscope, bring up some of this stuff that they're doing. We don't need to bring everything up, but bring some of it up so that the community can see it, and we can understand it. We can have if we're conversational about it, then the community has a good opportunity to become educated about it, which means you're going to have meaningful comments when it is open up for the draft review, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what that's our goal, right? Is to have not just crazy, what the heck are they doing this for, but actually have people saying, well, I see that you did this on this, I don't remember some of the general streets or whatever. I see you did this, why, or how is this changing? What is I see design standard. What does that mean? There'll be lots of questions like that we can help educate, as opposed to, because those aren't comments, those are questions about the process, right?
Yeah.
And the more we can do to educate people so that they can provide comments, as opposed to, help me understand this. I think that's kind of that's the glue that we provide, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about, this definitely makes sense to talk about in January. And try to nail down with all of the planning commissioners, hopefully able to attend at that time. Try to nail down when we want to do a session with the consultant. Might make sense to do a planning commission session first, a public session second. I'm just thinking about ordering of it. If the planning commission has a session first, we can make sure that we're all really thoroughly, on the same page, and we understand what the consultant has been doing, and we understand the draft, whatever it's at that point. We understand the major changes. We're prepared to talk about it. Then we do a public event, and the consultant should be part of that, whatever their next phase of public engagement should be. They do owe some more public engagement, but if we can be a part of that, we can help move it forward. And then have the third item in the order of events be a more detailed briefing to council. And of course, hopefully council members attend whatever that next public engagement session is as well. They didn't specify. Here's the next question. So they didn't specify, they did specify there would be at least one event, and that event was held last August. They then specified a second round of public engagement, but we didn't specify the format of that. So it could be an in-person event, or it could be virtual. They have various different options that they included in their proposal for different things they could do.
Yep.
But no decision has been made on what that format will be. So again, I'll go back to them in January and push them to start making some decisions and setting, dates and deliverables for what they're going to do for their next round of public engagement. But this is something we can, we can share our preferences. Do we think an in-person event is best? Do we think something that is, more available online or available in print, or both?
I hear you.
We got,
I'll defer to the masses, but I mean, the world is open. You know what I mean? It seems like the best thing to do. And time, talent, and treasure aside, it seems to me like the world's expectation is that this is a community, public facing in-person event. But like I said, I don't, whatever the group says is best, I'm fine with. But it feels like, Vince, were you at the park thing down at the band shell? The
I was
stage?
not. No,
It was
not.
cool. I got to tell you, there was there weren't 6,000 people that showed up, don't get me wrong, but there was a steady flow of people that came in, and, you know, there was some stuff that was up, and there were people who could, you know, there was information that was being collected from the public, and there were, you know, people who were experts on it, you know, Kirsten obviously included, who could answer questions. I really felt like anybody who came to that felt like their town was listening to them. You know what I mean? It felt right. You know, I thought that was a good thing. It was, you know, it was in the, you know, in the, and, you know, maybe this is maybe this happens with Ingram as a, you know, we can go get one of those pop-up tents. You know what I mean? We can go get one of those pop-up tents and put it in the middle of the Giant Eagle parking lot where nobody ever parks, you know, and have it out there, you know, have some balloons. I don't know. I'm happy to buy the balloons, but something like that, you know, maybe that's a way to go. I mean, we don't have to decide it now. It's just three of us, but it feels like something like that would be, I don't know, it'd be impactful, you know, it would be impactful because not everybody goes, but those people that go tell 6 other people and say, yeah, I went to this thing, and oh, wow, yeah, that's great that they are doing that, you know, that's all. Just trying to wrestle they. Not sure who they are, but they keep doing stuff.
No, I agree. I think in person, if we can do an in-person event, I think that would be really beneficial.
Okay, well, we can certainly prioritize that. I mean, again, they had a series of things in their proposal that they said were all possible, but they didn't pick one.
Right.
So it was clearly kind of in our court to decide. We have a voice in how we want to push the engagement to go. The only thing we might come up with if in doing a second in-person event is that they're not local, and they might not have budgeted for another round of travel, but I think it's much more important that they do all the materials.
Right. Yeah.
We can conduct the event if they're not able to be here, or we can have somebody call in, and we did have local, there was a 4-company, right? Was it 3 or 4? It was 4 companies.
Right.
That were participating, the main consultant, and then 3 subs that were supporting them for public engagement, 2 of whom are local. So, I mean, I'm sure we can get at least somebody there from their team. I think the much more important is to make sure that we push them to do really good quality materials that explain what they're doing, because that shouldn't be on us. We can then share the message.
I think you've got a good vision for it.
It needs to come from them.
Yep.
And I need to push them on that, because I've been a little disappointed that they haven't been taking more initiative.
Yeah, you know, I was just spitballing and I threw it out there, but I like the idea of doing something in the Giant Eagle parking lot, because it's Crafton and Ingram. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like I said, let the chips fall where they might. I think the salient point is there'll be enough information that's coming out in January where we need to, instead of loosely follow our emails, because I'm fully guilty of 30,000 emails a day, not seeing everything, but we need to really kind of dig in prior to the next meeting and come up with you know, what are the things about it that I don't understand? You know, Vince, I don't think that you're probably an expert in this area. I'm sure that Kirsten, Lydia, pretty expert in this area. Matt probably thinks he is, but probably could use a couple of pointers in what the zoning, you know, rewrite update looks like. You know, I think that each of us comes from our, you know, our backgrounds into it, you know, with a kind of a thoughtful kind of summary of information, and say, okay, what is it that we want to convey? How best should we ask that to be conveyed? And, you know, what are the next steps, right? I think that's a really good action item for our next meeting.
Yeah, I'll put that down as an action item. I actually kind of like the idea of Foster Park. We did that August event in Crafton.
Hmm.
Foster Park has nice pavilions and it's still pretty central.
That's
But it's
beautiful.
technically
Yeah,
Ingram.
even better. Yep, yep.
And the benefit there, I mean, as much as your idea of the shopping plaza is neat, right? That's private property.
Right, yeah. Yours is a better idea. Yeah, for sure. Foster Park is a great idea. But it encapsulates what I'm thinking is like, how do we kind of get the Ingram side on it? You know, because here's what I know about Ingram. They're not going to do shit. Sorry. Is this being recorded? Good.
It's being recorded.
They're not going to do shit. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. They're not going to do anything. But you know, I would like for them to be engaged and involved, and the people over there to know about it, right? And
I
I'll
would
poke
say
that.
the August event, and Eric, I know you were there. I know Vince was there. It was about half and half. We had Ingram residents. I was nicely
Oh.
surprised that there were Ingram residents who came.
Right.
kind of
That's my
trickle in
point.
regularly. And I would say that the steering committee it has been hard for a lot of people to attend the meetings. They've generally been, you know, we've not had a single steering committee meeting that had all steering committee members, but it has been fairly evenly split
It's good.
between
I'm glad to
Crafton.
hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Like I said, I kind of poked the bear a little bit on that, actually a lot on that. Because, you know, I think that Ingram needs to be more engaged in the process. And that's been my personal opinion and not a reflection of this committee.
Mhm. Well, they're certainly dealing with time and availability issues as well, but this is a multi-municipal project and
Okay.
I am only coordinating the Crafton end because I don't want to be responsible for coordinating
Oh.
Ingram. I don't represent Ingram. And-
I'm sorry, I'm getting a call from the UN. Yes, the UN would like you to join. Your diplomacy skills are phenomenal. Sorry. Thank you. Anyway, we can move on, I think.
Okay, well, yeah, that's our update. A lot of things, this is a good reminder for me too. We have a lot of things that need to move forward and I need to push the consultant to start getting things, getting us updates and getting dates on calendar. So I will do that early January, get that draft map circulated to all of you. And then we'll have a more in-depth discussion, a more informed discussion in January when we all will have gotten updated materials from the.
Awesome. Awesome sauce.
Are we ready for the next item?
I am.
Vince and I
Yes.
are familiar with this one. Eric, I know you are too, because you've been familiar with this for a long time, but I did put this on the agenda because I put this on for last month's agenda, just in case
That's fine.
anyone
Yep.
came to the planning commission meeting and wanted to talk further about it. Council has been, you know, in talks with the school district for many years now. The school district owns that Linden property site and has been entertaining various different scenarios for selling it. At our November meeting, council voted to approve a contract for Fourth Economy to conduct a market feasibility study on the 2 Linden properties. The cost of that, I don't remember offhand. Vince, you might recall better than I do. It was somewhere around 16 to 18,000. It's not a huge sum.
It's around there, yeah.
20 grand between friends. Yes.
It was 20 and we negotiated. We had 2 bids.
Yeah.
One was 16 and one was 20. And we liked the 20 better in terms of the firm that bid for 20. We liked their approach better. We thought it was more tailored towards what we were looking for.
Right.
But we used the fact that we had 2 bids to negotiate a bit down. So we got it down to at least 18. It was somewhere in the 16 to 18 range.
When I saw this, you two don't know this. This has been a cross I've chosen to bear for multiple years now, prior to the pandemic. And this is all I've wanted. That's it. That's it. That's all I wanted. Somebody smarter than me, somebody knows this stuff for a living, to kind of help us understand, you know, what are we really looking at, so we can educate the community as what's really the best impact. There's time, there's talent, there's treasure, there's family, there's community, there's economics, right? Economy, all those things kind of come together with a short little, no consultant's going to do much work for 20 grand or whatever you settled on, 18, 16, 5, whatever. It's not going to be a lot, but it is a sage on a stage. You know what I mean? It's not one of us saying, I want this. Starbucks needs to come in. No offense to Coletta, no offense to Brad Krause, no offense to Phil and all those former people. But I do think that this is so useful to help the community understand what's reality. That's it. I love it. Love it. So
yeah, and
So happy.
that's why we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
We also have, this is all, the whole idea of selling that property was driven by the school district because they
Right.
own it. But the community doesn't see it that way, and it is very complicated. So, it's understandable. We have a lot of residents who just think that this is council's doing, and it's
I
the
love
school
it.
district site, but they don't represent the community the way that we do.
Right.
They don't actually live in the community, and they're not real estate experts. They're not developers. They're school district representatives. So they're not thinking about bigger picture, long-term impact. They're thinking about the offer they have on the table in front of them. So we are proceeding with this feasibility study to really educate everyone, the school district included, what the long-term costs and benefits are, what the various different options are, what the development potential is for different types of scenarios, what the cost would be for different types of scenarios. We know there are a lot of community residents that want different kinds of uses, including keeping it park and recreation, and that is also a possibility, but it will come with its own costs. So this feasibility study will let us get kind of an outside and just, expert driven view of what different options are and what the costs and benefits will be of each. So that's where we're at. And the borough manager and interim manager had a kickoff with them just before Christmas to finalize the contract and start, setting up who's going to be in charge of the project, et cetera. And there will be a project kickoff with that consultant in January. It's a very small project. There's no steering committee of any sort. It's going to be the interim borough manager, myself, and I had spoken to Vince at council back in November. Or was it the early December meeting? Vince, I asked you if you'd like to be there as well. It'll be a fairly informal kickoff with a couple of council members, avoiding any quorum,
Right.
and representatives from the school district to do a walk around the site.
They're welcome to attend. Well said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about, what has been done in the past,
Yeah.
share what each entity brings into this, and then the consultant will basically do their market study. It's something they do on their end. It's not a community involved kind of process. It's just research and putting numbers to paper and coming back to us with that. But that feasibility study will kick off in January.
I'll just say this. Crafton is basically landlocked by Pittsburgh, right? Outside of putting up the white flag and saying, hey, we'd like to join Pittsburgh and be a community neighborhood of the city of Pittsburgh. We don't have a lot of choices. And the reality is there is very, very little land, right? That's not developed in the community. And this is the old high school football stadium. This is the old high school football stadium. The districts merged long ago, prior to any of this, Howard Stillings era, right? So when I grew up, my next door neighbor was the superintendent of Carleton, right? Howard Stillings. He went to football games to this place. Nobody's gone to football games there since. It's been that long. My point is, you sell this, but you can. you sell this, and school district has the right to, right? They have different rules, different laws that govern a school district and how they choose to liquidate property as to what a borough could. And that's why I blocked it. That's why I got involved. That's why I just did everything I could to stop it, because I really wanted the people to think through the solution. The solution. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And you lose this, it's gone. You'll get a couple of $1,000,000. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. Well, now you get some taxes, and So what does that all mean? Well, I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but I've been around long enough to know that once it's gone, it ain't coming back. So make a good decision, because it's a really nice piece of property. There were people back in the day that made it the football stadium. They said this is the center of town. You know what I mean? So let's think it through. I cannot tell you, Kirsten, everybody on count, the fact that this is happening it's a Christmas present to me. It makes me so freaking happy. If there's anything that I can do, I don't need to be involved. You want me there? Happy to be there. I ask good questions. I don't need to be there. But anything that I can do to help promote what this means, and I know it's a small token of work, but it is an external opinion that I think will make a difference. So I think it's great. Great job, council members. Super duper job, council members.
All right, guys, I got kicked off again and I missed the last 30 seconds of that, but I'm just switching to my phone because
I was just rambling like I normally do. I'm so freaking happy that you're doing this. And if there's anything at all that I can do to help support this, let me know. I'll run through walls. I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
Well, the meeting where that feasibility study was on the agenda in November was the most highly attended meeting since I've been on council. Wouldn't you agree, Beth?
Yeah, that was a little crazy.
Right? It's a contentious thing.
So many people came out, and some people brought their kids to talk about how they don't want that field to be sold. Right. And, people were really passionate and they really put time and effort into it, but they also were directing a lot of comments that need to go to the school district. And we talked about that and we tried to address comments, and we talked with people afterwards also. And there was someone from the school district at that council meeting, and so they heard it as well. But yeah, Jim.
I didn't see that. Oh, Shriver was there? Okay. Okay. I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
But the other, the members of the school board were not there, and they have decision-making power. And it was just really, really interesting to hear, even after we, responded to questions as best we could and described the process as best we could. Even after the meeting, there were still comments from people about how they just want us to take this message back to the school board. They want council to do that. And we can do that, but this is where it becomes difficult, because if the school board doesn't hear from residents, they just tune out council. They don't have to listen to us. They're their own entity. And if they don't hear comments from residents about how people don't want that site sold, or they don't want it to be a gas station, then they're going to make decisions in a vacuum. And so, that's one thing that I would say to Planning Commission and to anybody who cares about this. Try to help educate other residents that it is important to take this message to the school board.
And I think that you're right on all accounts there. And I don't think that filing for bankruptcy for the Carleton School District is a bad idea. If they're really that poorly managed and the fiscal problems that they're facing are that bad. I also think that it's incumbent upon the residents of Crafton to decide whether or not they feel like being part of the Carleton School District is the best go forward plan for this community. I think those are serious questions, and they're not easily answered. They're not easily litigated. But they are things that that need to be addressed at this point. If it's really that bad, and $3 million or whatever it is that Sheets offered, and blah blah blah, couple of $1 million. If that's all the difference that it makes to save the school district, where are we going to be in 5 years? And right now, they're they're recipients, like every school district in America, of ESSER money that hasn't been seen in at least 10 years, and it's a multiple of what it was in 2010. So if the school district really needs bailed out, and that's really where we are, then maybe the dissolution of the school district is what needs to be talked about in the community.
Yeah, and I don't, we can't sit here and speak
Yeah,
for where they're at, but they have acknowledged, Jim stated at that council meeting in conversation with people following the meeting, that they certainly want the money. They certainly are struggling in some ways, but this is not a make it or break it for them. They don't need to sell it. He's expressed things kind of both sides. Again, we can't put words in their mouth. They're not here, and their finances are their finances. We don't know that, but it doesn't sound like this is the difference between bankruptcy or not bankruptcy. This is just a nice change that they would like to get that would help them. But if they don't get it, they will find other ways.
I totally agree with you, and I will tell you, I'm relieved on all fronts about where we are. I'm glad it didn't sell in the back alley deal that was going to happen 3 years ago. I don't care what sort of political corrupt turmoil I created for myself and stepping in it, but the reality is, originally that $3 million was going to fund a pension plan that, well, needed to be addressed through other means than selling real estate. And the reality is, there is some stabilization that's happening economically through the pandemic relief and through other means and through good decision making from the Crafton from the Carleton School District. That board has made some good decisions. They've done some good things. So the reality is, I'm thrilled to hear it. I think that this is the right thing to do. If there's anything that I can do to support the feasibility study from my end, I've got a lot of history from it. Got a lot of emails. I've got a lot of work that I've done, but it's all in the rearview mirror. Everything for this feasibility study is about what's in our windshield. So I don't know that I'm needed.
If you have things you'd like to put down in an email or share links, or just start thinking about your thoughts, go ahead and do that. One of the first things that they will do is they're supposed to have a visit to walk the site with a couple of members of council, and more importantly with members of the school board, because council approved this. We're funding the whole study. School board participating in funding it. We took that cost on ourselves. But the school board will be there for that walkthrough. So that to me, and I believe to a lot of the other council members who decided to vote to go forward with this path and to choose this consultant, to choose Fourth Economy, we really liked that was part of their approach, because we want to get the school board to hear from the consultant early on and start understanding how much bigger, more consideration needs to go into this besides just point of sale. How much money can you get right now, as well as understanding how many barriers there are to the plan that they had in place anyways, because what they wanted isn't even feasible without major borough collaboration that they didn't have, and without PennDOT collaboration they didn't have. There were a lot of, they have an image in their head of something that they could do because one buyer put that image in their head, and want them to start understanding how much of that is.
Amen. Yep. Yep.
So that's one of the,
Amen.
and then as part of that, we're going to be gathering up for them documents that they need to review. And that's, you know, primarily just what our zoning is pertaining to that site. And that is not changing. We've made that very clear as part of our zoning update that that site is not going to be rezoned. So our consultant is not changing that. So we'll be sharing with Fourth Economy, our consultant for the feasibility study, the current zoning restrictions on it, the Planning Commission's workshop findings from 2 years ago, the plans that were, the ideas that were gathered by community residents. And then of course the school board will be sharing the ideas that they have from the offer that they have. So those are the major items that we are going to share. And if there are other things that that you're familiar with, since you've been working on this a long time,
That's
Eric.
it. That's the totality of it, right? That's the totality of it. I just didn't, I know that the school district has in their power the ability to sell it with just 2 community stewards that really don't need to be stewards, and they can just sell it because it's their property and it's their ability to do it. I just don't think that that's the best decision. It's not about the money, it's about the community. And if the money is important, we'll find the money. Money's not hard to find. It's not. It's hard to get, sort of. It's not hard to get, sort of. But it's not about the money. It's about the community. And losing a flat piece of land that can be so good for this community in so many ways without any community input, you know, places do this all the time. School systems, municipalities, they do this all the time. They lead with a market research, right? Federal government does this all the time in my work. Market research. Hey, we're thinking about this. What does this look like to the world? They just put it out there as market research, right? Then they do a request for information. You know, what would your proposal be if we were to develop this, right? They didn't do any of that in the public sphere. It was all done in this back alley, you know. Felt like I was.
This is market research, and
Yes.
it might be difficult
That's
for
it.
people to turn it into to purchase it for the borough and have it all be borough-owned park. I know that's something that some residents want, and that might be
Sure.
for us to afford, but having the feasibility study will put, you know, neutral, market research driven, third party, you know, unbiased numbers to what those options are. And then we can use that to go seek out the funding to make it happen.
Exactly.
To do.
Exactly. I love it. Like I said, hats off. Anything you want me there? You don't want me there? I don't care. I don't care. I'm just glad it's happening. That's it.
Okay. I'm trying to get caught up on notes here because I did switch to my computer's still restarting. That's what happened.
Crap.
It's a work computer and it has all these security settings.
All right. I'm so sorry. I know that we're gonna go on to the new initiatives. Give me 45 seconds. I got a family thing.
Okay, well, while we wait for Eric, Vince, anything I missed? Anything you want to add?
No, I think that was all good.
I'm not even sure if that very first meeting will be the walkthrough, but I'll make sure that you get included on that, Vince.
Okay, awesome. Thank
I
you.
know Doug finalized the contract last week and he reached out to me and said, you know, he gave the consultant my name so they can start scheduling a kickoff. And that's really all I know so far.
Perfect.
Get that scheduled soon.
Who else from council is joining, or just us two?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you send an email out to all of council and ask who wants to participate. As
Okay.
long as we're not making any decisions, I don't know if we need to worry about quorum, but I might ask Doug what he thinks about that. It probably also depends what that first meeting is going to be. Is the first one directly going to be a site visit, or will it be more of just like a brief intro logistical discussion about scheduling the site visit? I don't know.
Gotcha.
But he's been setting it up so far. And once he got the contract in place just before Christmas, and he gave them my email to coordinate next step with, and that is as far as it's gone so far. So yeah, I'll email all of council and see who else wants to join.
Sounds good. And hopefully the school board attends.
I think that's a must. I don't see that there's much point in doing the site visit on a date that they can't join. I think they need to be there. At least somebody from the school board needs to be there. Right, because we already know what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's a little bit more comprehensive. I mean, we are the ones who put out the RFP. We're the ones that assessed the proposals. Council did. The school board needs to understand what this project is trying to get at and start understanding why we're doing it.
Oh, no, absolutely. But I just hope that they see it that way.
Oh, I wish you were right. I wish they were vocal about it. I wish they were involved in it.
Exactly.
Jim
But
Schwartz, he's met with council, he's talked to council, he's been communicating, but no one on the school board has. So I think we've got to get them to start coming and participating.
when is the walkthrough?
It's not scheduled.
Okay.
Yeah, Doug met with them just before Christmas, got the contract in place, gave them my contact as the council member to coordinate with moving forward. And that's all that's happened so far.
I would be more than happy to commit myself to let me know when the walkthrough is, and I will go to the school board meeting that is most prior and adjacent to the walkthrough, and just make sure that, hey, y'all know me. I'm kind of a familiar face with that group, and cordially invite them as a board, to attend.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The date that was floated so far was January 12th.
Okay.
But again, none of that has been set yet. So I don't know if the school board will have a meeting before that. And I also don't know if they plan for that to be the walkthrough, or if it's going to be, I just mentioned this to Vince, we were chatting while you were away.
Yep.
Eric.
Sorry.
I'm not sure if that very first meeting will be more logistical, like let's get everyone, do an introduction and talk about when to schedule the walkthrough, or will that be directly the walkthrough? So far they've suggested that date to me, but I haven't, it just came through right before Christmas. So I haven't talked to anyone about what the agenda is for that. What time will it be? Who's invited? What's the content? Is that going to be the walkthrough, or is that going to be like a pre-touch base meeting to schedule the walkthrough? So I will follow up with them this week. I just got home today, an hour before this call. So I'll
holidays, yes.
and try to figure out that what's happening on the 12th and then, let you guys know.
I will, let me know, if it is confirmed. I'll go to the finance committee on the 10th. Because here's our schedule. I just pulled it up. So
Okay.
we'll see. But the finance committee meetings are, short. And so I can just show up and say, hey, guys, it's in 2 days. Be great if you came. Leave it at that. Okay,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks, Eric.
cool.
I'll try to get that nailed down this week and let you know what time, whether that is going to be the 12th, what time, details, etc.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the update for the feasibility study. Nothing else has happened yet, but it'll be starting in January, and hopefully, it doesn't look like we have any residents on the line tonight. But if people are on the line, or if you get questions or comments from other residents, I just wanted to make sure we all understand what's happening and why, and we can share that with our neighbors as needed.
Fantastic. Thank you. Way to go.
And then that leads us down to those final items. We kind of have had this on the agenda for a few months now. It's sort of running items to let us discuss new initiatives and ideas for what we'd like to pursue next. So that first one is really, it's kind of a status update. Allegheny County and City of Pittsburgh are doing a digital equity plan. Doesn't have major impact on Crafton. We have pretty good internet service here, but the digital equity plan is going to be, helping to direct a lot of funding to places that indicate a need for more training, or devices for school students or seniors who don't have good connectivity, better resources for our library, for example. This plan is not being led by Crafton. It's Allegheny County and City of Pittsburgh are doing it together. And they don't seem to be doing an enormous amount. They have a pretty tight timeline, so they're going to do whatever their plan is. But Connect, we are members of Connect, and Connect is on the steering committee or advisory committee, whatever they call it, for that county and city digital equity plan. So if we have any thoughts or ideas for how we would like, what gaps we see in our community's ability to really benefit from access and usage of the internet, resources that we think we need, we can share that with Connect to have them pass it on to include in the county and citywide plan.
All right. God, I'm sorry.
I think this is something that the internet is constantly changing.
Right.
Technology is constantly changing. There's constantly more to do with it. And the more we have the internet, the more things shift towards using more and more internet. And that takes skills. We have a lot of seniors here who, would benefit from better resources and better support to help them learn how to do telehealth appointments, for example, learn how to, look up bus schedules online, or order food online, or contact friends and relatives online. Our school could certainly use more resources. The library is well used, but it's small. The library could use more resources. And so if we know about any gaps in our neighborhood, or neighbors who struggle to know how to use the internet or afford paying for it, and these are all things that we can, if we share what our needs are, that just, again, like every plan, you don't know what's going to come out of it, but by putting it in the plan, it makes it much, you're putting ourselves in line to get funding.
I could not agree with you more. I just put in, I think it's the right link for i3 Connect. So the Connectivity Explorer, i3connect.us. Nope, I have the wrong one. Let me put in the right connect.
Are you looking for the Congress of Neighboring Communities Connect?
No, this is if you guys are kind of data geeks, and I suspect that you are. This is a really powerful tool. The Connectivity Explorer kind of shows you what the coverage is. It shows, well, if you look at Carnegie next to Crafton, it shows you how hopeless things are, right, in Carnegie. Not, you know.
Are you looking at internet
Connectivity? Yep.
access? Like,
Yeah, access and connectivity. Some of the things that we've done with schools, we've put these big insidious devices, mounted them inside of buses, put a plastic thing on them, and pulled them into neighborhoods, so that kids could be nearby and have internet. In flat places like Toledo, Ohio, we've mounted these things to the sides of water towers, right? And what it does is you make a decision, because the school district pays for internet access that they really only use until 3 p.m. So you can throttle back that access and push it out on these kinds of distribution networks, so the community can benefit from it from 3 p.m. onwards, so that kids can do homework, for example. We've routed buses in West Virginia through these. The point is, there's a lot of options that are out there. When you look at kind of the disparity by zip code in terms of available access versus utilized access, you get to see a really interesting picture that's not surprising. And that's why Crafton doesn't qualify as much as maybe a Carnegie or a Wilkinsburg would, but it's still there. And so I put it into the notes. I know you're taking notes elsewhere, but I put it in there so you have it. It's just for you two. I suspect that you'll be kind of geeked out by it. It's fascinating stuff. Set up your Carleton profile, look into the school district, and you'll see some fascinating patterns. But again, same thing. If there's anything that I can do with the to support whatever you guys want to do with Connect, I'm happy to do it. I'm conversational on a lot of these points, but it's I don't know what you guys want to do. I know that it's an equity issue, and we have huge problems. They're not necessarily in Crafton. We could do more in Crafton. Seniors could have better access, like you said. We could do more things, but I'm not. Whatever you want. I'm pretty knowledgeable about that world, and I can help if you need it.
Well, Eric, do you want to start a memo, start a Google Doc, like loosely formatted, with just some suggestions of what we would like more resources for?
Sure.
No, there's not any clear direction. Connect is a steering committee member for this county city digital equity plan, but they're not doing a whole lot with it. So if we want something included, our best way forward is just to write out what we want, send it to Connect, and they'll submit it for us. They'll make sure that it gets submitted. I don't know what the steering committee will do with that information and how much of it will make it in the plan, but I think we definitely, I would like to deliver to them our wish list. And of course, in order to convince them that it should be included, it should be not just a simple wish list, but some justification for who we think is struggling, and then what we would like, what kind of investment we would like to be able to meet the needs and those gaps. So the things that I thought of first were obviously seniors. I think we have a lot of seniors who don't really know how to benefit from everything that's available on the internet, and more digital literacy training.
For sure.
And support here would be great. Probably the best place to do that would be through the library, which means then the library needs more resources. They do provide computers. They do provide hotspots, but they have limited supply and usage within the library is limited to their open hours. So can they have more resources available for checkout?
Yeah.
More of hotspots available for checkout. Is there, a way that we can have community Wi-Fi available more regularly in a publicly accessible place that has longer open hours? Could we have community Wi-Fi in the park? We do have a Borough building, which has limited hours, but maybe we can, increase how that works and create like a Borough computer lab space with a couple of publicly available computers. And there are a lot of ways we could go about that, but those are a few of the first things that came to mind for me. And then the other link that I put in there, Eric, into the same file that you're sharing, I talked a little bit about this at the last council meeting. So you shared a link that shows connectivity status right around the area.
Yep.
I shared the FCC's map because they have been working on updating their national broadband map. And they published that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's actually open right now for public comment. And a savvy citizen notice was sent out detailing a bit how to do that. It's a very complicated map. It has multiple different settings and the default setting is not at all helpful. So you have to go to the main map, select location summary to be able to search by location. Then you can put in your address. Then you have to go over and look at all the different types of broadband and select which setting you want to look at. Because if you just look at broadband, it shows every single setting and the entire country is covered essentially. And that's not true. So if you figure out and you look by only what is considered high-speed internet and you look at only fixed wireless, which is, fixed to the home, that's what's technically considered broadband. The numbers go way down. So that's where you see there are a lot of gaps. And again, this particular map is more about who has access in the first place. It does not address whether it's affordable, does not address whether people have the skills to use it. And Crafton does have pretty good access, but that is open for public comment until January 13th. And if anyone knows of areas in Crafton or neighbors or residents who cannot get internet in the first place, this is where to report it. By January 13th, we can report that. And I'm happy to walk people through that process if needed.
Awesome.
But again, that particular map from the FCC, that is only about access at this point. And the digital equity plan is then, setting up what kinds of additional investments are needed to help people with affordability and skills to be able to use it.
Love it. I will, I'll put some thoughts together. Again, this is the kind of stuff for seniors, right?
Mhm.
This is the kind of stuff for seniors that they really need. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is nothing like this in Allegheny County. There's no place to go where you can go to the library and they can unpack what these things are, right?
So some places have digital navigator programs, and we don't have any of that in Crafton, but we should.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's wide plan will be recommending. I would like to make sure that we have Crafton listed as a place that
For
wants.
sure. I love it. I love it. All right. Let me get some ideas together because I'm just gonna, do randomnimity. And we don't need to do that together. So I'll put some thoughts together, start a Google Doc, and we can talk about this. And if there's an ask from Connect, great. If there's not, then great. Okay. Vehicles.
All right, vehicle electrification. I haven't done anything else on this one yet. We might want to bench it until Lydia is here because she has gathered a lot of relevant policies and guidelines to start looking at. But But, it's here on the agenda. If you guys have looked into it and want to add to the discussion, this continues to be something that is important to me. It's not really an issue in Crafton yet, but as more and more people buy electric vehicles, and we do live in an area where we don't have any public charging stations in Crafton. We have looked into that, but we haven't been able to do it or afford it yet.
Well, yeah, I think you're spot on. I would have never thought of this, but you're spot on. This is it's so important for us to at least think ahead of this as opposed to react to it. And yes, I know that Lydia has been really essential in doing a lot of, thought finding on it. So we can talk about it in January. Hopefully, I hope she's okay, man. She's
going through with her family.
tough times. God bless her. All right, so let's skip it, table it, whatever we want to say.
We're thinking in advance, right? We're preparing, but so we can just keep this on the agenda.
For the public to know that reviews these minutes, that this remains a priority for us to make recommendations from the planning commission to the city council. Okay, how's that?
Okay. I just noticed yesterday, I think it was kind of a viral video on Twitter of someone charging their electric vehicle on their own driveway. But it was an elderly gentleman, and his car was charging, and he was walking around and doing other things. Then he tripped on the cable.
Oh God.
And that was just in his own driveway. But that is exactly why we are having this conversation and starting to look, in advance, trying to prepare policies that will address how people will go about charging vehicles when they are parked on the street. A lot of communities are starting to see people just pull the cables across the sidewalk, and we want to prepare ordinances that deal with how that can be handled, and give our borough and give our police a framework for how they deal with making sure that people stay safe and are able to charge their vehicles while keeping our sidewalks safe.
For sure. I'm sure that's anything that we can think of is being dwarfed by places like Boston and San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't have snow, but Boston does, so there's lots of stuff that, that there are people that are being forced to reckon with this issue that we may not be forced to reckon with at this point, but we should certainly, be informed by what's out there. So awesome. All right. Hey, we didn't talk about the official map, and I just noticed I didn't understand from the last committee meeting. There was a guy named Tim. Maybe it's not his real name. There was a guy named Tim in Carnegie that we were going to reach out to or something. I wasn't totally clear on it. I looked it up, and I was super impressed. Do you know who I'm talking about? The last month.
I wasn't able to attend the last month. I think it was
no, but it was on the agenda. It was you guys that did it. You're so smart.
So I talked to the solicitor and got the contact for the person that the borough had dealt with a few years ago.
It was an email. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dug up a few years ago, the borough had to deal with the Conservancy on another issue when they were doing the parking lot across from the school. So I spoke with our solicitor to dig up that contact, and he shared the contact with me. So we do have a contact with the Conservancy now. Other than that, so the update on the official map, and this was on the minutes from the last meeting. It was on the agenda for the last meeting. I knew I couldn't attend, and so I just gave a slightly more detailed agenda to give the update. Basically, the solicitor said that we don't need to we can go ahead and do our own official map if we want one. We can have our engineers put that together. We can also do one that's just unofficial.
Right.
We can proceed with preparing a map of trails and recommended connections without any consultant, if we so choose. The only recommendation we had from our solicitor was that if we wish to show on a map that we feature anywhere with the borough's name on it, if we put it on the borough website, if we wish to show trails that we don't own, we should seek written permission from those property owners to affirm if or under what conditions access is permitted. So the Conservancy owns part of that Chartiers Trail, and they haven't said anything about, they've left it open for people to walk on. People do walk on it. There's been no opposition from the Conservancy, but if we would like to put that on a map as a recommended walking trail, we should get in writing from the Conservancy that they
Right.
permit people to walk there, and
And
they
this-
make on it.
The same thing for the
Corps of Engineers.
the engineers, the Corps of
Mhm.
Army Corps of Engineers. So how about this? Put it on me, and I know that you want to keep this as the agenda. I don't know where you're taking notes, but put it on me to make a list of those properties or those right of ways or whatever it is, those sections of the map that I showed you that we should probably vet. Right?
Mhm.
Vet. I don't know what I'll do that, right? I think that makes perfect sense, right? Because in my mind, you can start in the West End, and eventually you can get to the greater Allegheny Passage, right? There are places that are missing connectivity in Carnegie, and they're like the person that you shared with me, and I looked at the Carnegie what do you call it, Planning Commission what do you call it, Planning Commission's documents.
Mhm.
Holy crap, they've really got some interesting stuff. So that's why I said I'll reach out to this Tim guy, and or maybe that's not his name, the person you put into it, Tim is what I'm saying. I'll reach out to the guy that you put in the email and see where we get. I honestly, that's really exciting. It really is, because if you could get from the West End up over the trolley trail and then back to Crafton and then back down through McKees Rocks to the McKees Rocks Flats, or whatever they're going to call it, or in lieu of that, up to Carnegie. That's really interesting. That's economically vibrant. You know what I mean? That gives us a lot of people are interested. A lot of people are interested in making those connections happen. And I didn't realize how much opportunity there really is there. So but it starts with us defining what we have. Like, all that stuff is aspirational, but there's a perspirational thing that we need to do, right? Which is to document, here, this is what we have. This is what we can tell our public that they can do. And, we can aspire to these greater connections, to City of Pittsburgh or to Carnegie or to McKees Rocks or to whomever. Like that's all aspirational. Like, there's a core set of things that we should really, I don't know, codify is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like get on paper as the official map. Does that make sense?
Do you think this would be something good to put on the agenda in January and show up with actually a map that we can all annotate? Or Eric, you can start it in advance of January if you are able to, in advance of that January meeting. We want to have a map, right, that indicates where the trails are. And if we think about how we're going to put this together and how we would want it to be on the Borough website, we would want it to be a visual map. We probably want it to be something that can be keyed into Google Maps, and we don't have to do that right now, but if we think of-
Yeah, I'm just, oh, God, I don't have it. I thought I had one. Yep.
want
Okay.
it to identify trails that exist with their proper name owner, right?
Yeah.
We'd want it to identify paths that are unofficial trails where we're recommending you walk here.
Right.
But we want to separate out what's official and what's not official. And then there are probably also routes where we might want to identify like recommended walking routes along sidewalks.
I'll commit to have something that's presentable to the group in January, right? You give that as a direct action item to me.
Okay.
Just because the thing that I did on Google, I think really makes sense, but it needs a companion like Google Doc or whatever that says, okay, this section, the Sakai Trail, I think it's a fucking paper street, but I have no idea. Like somebody smarter than me has to tell me that that's really a paper street besides Phil.
Once we have something that gathers the connections we want to feature, right? Because we could put every single sidewalk in Crafton on a walking map, but we're not gonna do that. We want to feature the most obvious ones. We want to feature ways to walk and connect to other trails as well.
Right. We want to recommend a loop or something where that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, wherever you start on a sled riding hill, you can, end on a sled riding. You can start on the, we want to have like destination places. And if you want to veer off of that and make your own, well, that's great. But as far as the places that are not streets, we want to give people confidence that what they're about to walk into, they're not going to be, attacked by a homeless person. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like it's like, no, this is an okay place for you to walk because it's sanctioned,
So once we come up with a list or, a map view of what all those walking routes are, and it won't take long. It just would be nice to have them visually. Talked about these times. We've even looked at them. We just haven't, really put them all into.
I'll name each route after one of my kids, and then.
But then we can take it to the and they can be the final check to verify. Did we classify these right? Did we put the ones we own in the right? So we don't have to do. We should do a first stab, but we don't have to verify everything ourselves. I'll take it to the borough engineers to verify.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think we're on the same page. All right. I didn't mean to belabor our meeting with that, but I think that's good. And I just before I delete this, I just want you to see this. This was you.
I see it. I have it open.
Oh, you're on it. Okay. I'll take it off. I will take it off the official record. Okay. Vince, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
October minutes.
Any comments, changes? Are we ready to approve October minutes?
Motion to approve October.
I will second that.
Can we approve November?
Minutes were put together. And so, yes, we can approve them. We can put it up. It states in there that there was no quorum. It still gives an overview of what was discussed. We can, we can post that.
Vince, will you motion to approve November so that I can second it?
Absolutely. I move to approve November's minutes.
Second.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Citizen comments. I'm on my phone now. Is there anyone else on the line?
No, there's no one else on the line. Okay. Except for me, I'm in the cellar. Let me out. All right.
We got to get more people to start attending these.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
We've been talking that apparently don't get anybody very interested. We had a few people attending for a little while.
Well, we talked about Linden. And I think we'll get more as we solidify this walking in Crafton thing. I think we'll get more people who are interested in learning, how do I walk in Crafton?
It would be neat to include a couple of like stars for destinations. And Eric, I like your idea of loops and such. We can include distances too. We can tell people you walk this loop, it's 1.2 miles.
Maybe we can come up with a badging system. If people walk it on their phone, they get a badge. It shows up on Savvy Citizen. Anyway, I think that we have reached our conclusion. So I'm going to motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll second. We are going to adjourn at 8:22.
And happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Have an awesome, warm New Year. And thank you guys for everything you do.
Yeah, great way to close out 2022. Hope everyone enjoys the last few days and celebrates this weekend.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks all.
Bye.
See you, bye.